it's ultimately calorie restriction. And all these diets just have a different way to tricking you into eating less calories. Sell the business at 40, go do something for 2 years. That something is either live in the woods in a cave.
If you're constantly seeking ways in which you can be better, then you're constantly telling yourself that there is either a problem or some error in that field of what you're doing.
There's a part of my personality that wants to travel the world and who wants to have the nice cars and who wants to, have the materialistic things. Another part of me that knows inherently that that's not what's going to bring you fulfillment.
Boom! Go Getters Podcast. Welcome to the show. Today we're talking to Jordan from Fit AF. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. How are you guys?
Doing
Awesome.
good.
Got a really cool business, man. I really like what you guys are doing. And also, I see your signs everywhere.
Yeah.
I think the last I saw was in Danko's gym.
The van there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think there's also something behind the counter too. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah.
We try to be everywhere.
Yeah. So you guys do a good job at that. Also, Jordan bought these cool protein bars. Where can we get these at? Where can I go buy one of these if I really like it?
Right now, you could get them from our website store, fitafnutrition.com.
Right.
We are in a bunch of gyms locally across Eastern Pennsylvania, here down to Philly, and dpsnutrition.com. You could actually order them from.
Here, you guys want to try it?
These are solid.
Split it. I didn't try it yet. Fuck.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Super solid.
You like them?
Make sure to go grab some protein bars. Fit AF website. Super good. So, Jordan, how'd you get into this business? How'd you get into meal prepping and all this stuff that you're doing now?
The short and long of it is I was always in kind of the fitness industry, personal training, nutrition coaching, group fitness, stuff like that. And I had one specific client who one day just asked me to cook his food. His name was Mark, and he was struggling. He was trying to lose weight. And he was working his ass off in the gym and wasn't getting anywhere. And I would always bring in my chicken broccoli type stuff.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I've always been an okay cook. I mean, my
Looks
mom,
like a
honestly.
chef from the IG page.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were working with Chef Ramsay or something.
Yeah, you throw on that chef jacket. Anyone will like a chef. No, I hold my own. I've hired people since who are way better than me. But I could hold my own. But at the time, chicken and broccoli was my
Go-to?
go-to.
That's still my go-to every day. Well, every night, I should say.
Yeah,
it's like my
it's
meal.
solid. I mean,
Yeah. It's like that's a meal to me. Like I know a lot of people complain about eating the same thing over and over and over again. To me, and I always say to my family, just like simply grilled chicken breast, broccoli, I could probably eat that every day for the rest of my life and be okay with it.
Yes, I've always been that way.
Yeah.
And then it's funny, our customers, some are and some aren't. Do we do a chicken and broccoli meal? No. We do grilled chicken with different marinades and different sides.
Yeah.
Which some are more basic, quote unquote. But that's something I had to wrap my head around, which was to me, I don't know, you could rip up this carpet and be like, it's full of protein and feed it to me. And I'd be like, okay. And that's not everybody.
Yeah.
By any means. But it's definitely, it's somewhat useful, right? You could get by eating, it's food. I want my protein. I want my carbs. I want my veggies and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely not everybody. Anyways, so Mark, I started cooking for him.
Yeah.
Long story short, I was cooking all his meals. I was actually going to his house and prepping everything.
Wow.
And he happened to, if I'm being honest, just have tons of money.
Yeah.
His family owned a bunch of manors in New York. And so the budget was whatever. He was like, make me filet mignon, make me chicken marsala, make me tuna steaks, all that stuff. So it was actually pretty cool because I got to expand my repertoire of first it was just chicken and broccoli for a while. Now it's whatever, filet mignon and meals like that. And I'd cook for him, portion everything out. So we'd have him for the week and did that for quite a while. I mean, he was my client up until a couple years ago. This story actually ends sadly. But he stuck on it. I mean, lost a bunch of weight and that started it. So then more people were like, what's Mark doing?
Yeah.
They would talk to Mark. They'd talk to me. They'd be like, yeah, I'm cooking this food. And then people would be like, oh, you want to cook my food? And I said, I guess. And before I knew it, more people were asking. And then I said, screw it, let's start a business.
Yeah.
And here I am.
So before all of that, did you have any inclination towards like the business side of life? Like, was that at all what you envisioned your life going forward would be like? Or was it just fitness that really got you into it?
I really had no idea. So no, definitely no business background.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think at the time I was in school going for an associate's in business, just because I felt like I should.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest. But I had no idea where I was going. I just saw my kind of life story. I got sober at 20. Prior to that was kind of a junkie. I from Connecticut. Moved out here to get sober.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wow.
since then, it's funny. I had a fitness career prior to that. I was working in gyms in Connecticut. The whole time I was training people. I was on a bunch of different substances, which is an interesting story in and of itself. But sorry, I just did that thing where I'm like, you shouldn't have said that.
No, you're good, man. If there's anything like you absolutely like want out.
I'm pretty open. I don't mind. It's just funny. But so moved out here to get sober and didn't have much of a plan.
Yeah.
Started kind of personal training, building a book of clientele out here, and Mark was one of the beginning clients, and then it just kind of happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why here? Like from that part of your life experiencing like what you were experiencing, why did you decide to move to Pennsylvania? Did you have a plan?
So I went to a 30-day spot in was it Unkinsville or somewhere by Reading. Maybe it's not Unkinsville. I went to a rehab by Reading, and then I went to basically like a step down sort of rehab facility. That you're there for 3 months, and that was in Hamlin.
Yeah.
So Lake Ariel. And I kind of started growing roots. I met a bunch of people. I figured it probably wasn't a good idea to go back home right away.
Yeah.
They say change your environment, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was, and that's why I even went down to this. Like if I truthfully, like anyone who I talk to now who's either going to, work on getting sober or anything like that, I'm like, you need to, like 30 days is good, but after that, like you got to do something else, like be very involved in the programs that there are for that, or go to a step down facility or something, like especially if it's been ingrained in your brain for 10 years that to go seek a substance anytime you feel stressed or just anything, then you want to break that habit, and it takes a while. I was there, made some friends, moved into, I lived in the Hideout for a few years, and then moved to Scranton.
Wow, that's pretty awesome, man. We had one guest on our podcast who struggled with some of the same problems, and I saw recently on one of your Instagram posts you shared somebody doing jiu-jitsu, and they worked with you guys to make weight.
Yes.
And this guy that we worked with, his name is James Delaney. Shout out him, Coach Delaney. And he had struggled with an addiction problem, but he had found jiu-jitsu and went through all those AA processes and stuff like that and turned his whole life around, which is pretty crazy. Yeah,
I'm familiar with James. I know. So I was at Gracie NEPA for a few years.
Oh, you trained?
A year and a half. Yeah, I stopped literally 3 months ago.
That's crazy, dude. That's insane.
Gracie NEPA, that's Jeff Reese, right?
Yes. Well, I was actually going to suggest you guys have to have Jeff Reese on the podcast.
Dude.
He brings it up all the time. He says Jeff Reese is like the wizard of the jiu-jitsu community, right?
Wait, how long have you been training?
I did a year and a half. I got 2 stripes.
Really?
My white belt,
Hey,
I'm going to go back. I just honestly work got crazy, so I had to step aside. But I miss
He and I actually just started. He's a blue belt now. How long have you been doing it? Like 2 years?
Yeah, a little over 2 years.
Yeah, he and I just started like a month or 2 ago. But it's awesome. I love jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Do you work with Tyler?
We actually just had him on the pod too.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
Tyler's awesome, man. He's kind of becoming a mentor of mine. He's showing me a lot a just in life as a man and stuff like that. He's really wise. I love Tyler.
Yes, great guy.
Yeah, he Bad Company. That's where we train. He trained, or where do you train? You train at college gym, right?
Yeah, I train at NEPA MMA, and then also I've been at Bad Company quite a bit as of recently. But I've been up to Gracie NEPA for open mats and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah, but Tyler, not Tyler. Jeff, he's a wizard, man. He's a literal
Mm.
genius when it comes to just martial arts and how to kill a motherfucker. Like, dude's different.
He's like, he really encompasses that idea of like gaining notoriety through mastering your craft. Because like,
Jeff?
Jeff Reese, I mean, he's not famous by any means, but I hear about him constantly.
You ever meet him?
No, I think I seen him at the Good Fight tournament that you were at or whatever, but I never talked to him, and I've never like had a one-on-one conversation with him.
He's cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah.
Even outside of jiu-jitsu, tons of wisdom, and yes, great example of somebody who doesn't go out of his way to show you that he's the man, but he can do so quietly, and you just kind of know.
Yeah.
Much respect for that guy.
Hell yeah, man. So what's your background in nutrition like? So did you have any prior knowledge to cooking for this guy about macronutrients, micronutrients, different types of balances, portion sizes, all that stuff? Or is this something you picked up as just in the field?
So both. So mom was a dietitian, and that got me into it. And it's funny because like that could go both ways, right? Like you have a parent who's really into health, and she like forces veggies upon her kids, and they leave the house to go eat Oreos with their friends. And I probably did that a little bit, but then when I was 12, I really got into lifting for whatever reason. I think I was honestly getting bullied at the time. I was like, oh, I want to put on some muscle and, you know, be able to fight back. Truthfully, I should have gotten to fucking jiu-jitsu when I was 12, if I'm being honest. So from 12 on, I was really into health and fitness and just constantly learn things, you know, watch my mom do her thing. When she would work with clients, she worked at Yale as well. And then honestly, multiple certifications and learning from my own experience. So like there's like nutrition's interesting because it's
really is
really honestly basic and straightforward, but it is made to seem very complicated.
Yes,
very much so.
By many people who gain from making it more complicated than it needs to be. You guys know what I mean?
That's something I really wanted to talk to you about on this podcast is like you see all over if you're scrolling on social media, people have their perspectives on all types of things regarding nutrition. Like what's good for you, what's bad for you. There's people who are saying that you shouldn't be eating organs, raw organs, and there's people who are saying that you shouldn't be eating meat at all, or people that say that you shouldn't eat vegetables because vegetables have defense chemicals ingrained within them, and these actually aren't beneficial for human beings, and they don't carry any antioxidants and stuff like that. So you see both sides of what people are talking about on social media, and it's very, very confusing because you see one people say you should eat this, and the next man says you shouldn't eat that. So it's like, what the fuck do I do?
Well, nutrition's very like capitalistic now, it seems, and in terms of social media, it's like everybody who at least is interested in fitness, like they try to make, I guess, gain notoriety by being bold and coming up with all these crazy ideas about the industry of fitness.
The bold thing's interesting because by making a strong claim that's against the norm, you gain attention, right? Like, I was gonna go into something, but I'm trying to think of a guy. Stephen Gundry is a great example of, you know, blueberries are bad, chia seeds are bad. What else does he say? Does he harp on olive oil or something? But
seed oils are bad.
Well, there's something to that. But people will take, you know, veggies are bad, like that, and that piqued your ears. Like even, you know, you see that headline, it's like, this is making you fat. And for people who don't know much about nutrition, who are struggling to lose weight and feel like they've tried anything, then when they see those headlines, it's like, oh, this must be it. Whether it's, you know, not that most people believe veggies are bad, but that's a carnivore thing. But there's a lot of, like, it's sad because people are very vulnerable in this area. And it's a strong, like, it's losing weight is a strong desire. It's like making money online. Like there's just as much shit out there, people trying to sell programs to make money online, as there are shitty weight loss programs. You know, it's the same thing because there's such a strong desire for people to do so. Anyways, the new and to even harp on like to what you brought up. So the what did you say? So veggies being bad, carnivore. So in the realm of the carnivore diet, they don't eat, I don't think, it's been a while since I really looked at it. I don't think they eat really any vegetables. I believe it's all meat, and they sometimes allow fruit.
Yeah. That's what I've heard, or I've seen the most.
So the anti-nutrient thing is interesting. I believe they're called phytates. It's a specific compound that can block the absorption of other nutrients. Long story short, it's not that much. It's not that much of an effect, meaning this is a thing with brown rice and white rice. Brown rice, I think, has phytates in it, and then there's a group of people saying this is why we should eat white rice, because when you eat brown rice, you're blocking the absorption of things like magnesium and other compounds, I believe. Honestly, it's been a while, so I want to limit how much I talk about this. I don't want to say anything wrong, but it's null.
I see.
Yeah, they're picking something small and blowing up the claim to make themselves sound smarter, sound like they know something you don't, and so that you'll buy their program.
Yeah, and to go against like the common narrative to appear bold, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that is interesting. So then what do you think? What's the bread and butter? What's the best way to eat, and what's the best way to lose weight or maybe gain weight or just to feel good?
Right. God,
it's a packed question.
Big question.
Maybe we can unpack that a little bit.
Maybe to make it simpler, like what do you find works the best for you as an individual?
Right.
What's your regimen like?
We'll start here. There's a few base things that almost all diets are proponents of, whether you're vegan or keto or carnivore, whatever. Actually, carnivore we'll step aside because they're kind of in their own world. All diets push caloric restriction generally in some form. How you get caloric restriction, which is ultimately the driver for weight loss, is different depending on the diet. So on a paleo diet, through avoiding grains, through avoiding dairy, people can slip and fall into a calorie deficit. It's not that the diet is magic in and of itself, and because you only ate certain foods, your body was now magically able to lose weight. No, it's that through following the restrictions of that diet, you ate less and you lost weight. Same thing with keto. It's not that low carb is magic and allows you to burn more fat. It's that by limiting your carb intake to 50 grams or less a day, you may eat less. A lot of people don't. They scoop, they take way too much. They eat scoopfuls of peanut butter and go over their calorie budget. In a vegan diet or vegetarian diet, it's by not eating meats. So that's one. So one is it's ultimately calorie restriction, and all these diets just have a different way to tricking you into eating less calories.
Wow, that's interesting. Really interesting.
Macros are just basically not even like lying to yourself. It's like, no, we're going to eat less calories, and here's how we're going to do it. Like, that's why macros are nice, because you can't, macros work 100% of the time, in that if you have a macro set that works for you, which is not hard to find, and you could follow it, you will lose weight. Moving forward, too, almost all diets push things like lean meats and vegetables, or we'll just even keep it to vegetables. So again, caloric restriction, or eating less calories than you expend, is the ultimate requirement to lose weight. I can do that. So if I burn 2,000 calories a day, if I eat 1,500 calories, I'll lose weight. I could eat 1,500 calories of Twix bars if I want to, and I'll lose weight. I might not feel great. I won't feel great. And I'll be hungry. And, you know, I'm not getting protein. I'm not getting fiber, all these things that help keep us satiated. But I would lose weight. Like, that's literally the law of thermodynamics, like, to a T. Like, you just consume less. And a lot of people will push back on this because they say they try it.
Yeah.
However, most people are very bad at estimating their calorie intake, even if they're tracking.
Yeah.
Even if you're tracking and you think you're only eating 1,500 calories, you may have for 1, 2, 3 days. But if you're not losing weight, there's a good chance you were over-consuming on, you know, the weekends, you over-consume at night.
Yeah.
Maybe your portions were off. Maybe you're grabbing a handful of this and that while you're making your meal and you're not tracking that. And I'm not even pushing macro tracking right now. I'm just saying we're notoriously bad at determining how many calories we're actually ingesting.
Yeah.
Most people come to me, so we do nutrition coaching. Most people come to me saying, I've been eating 1,000 calories and I'm not losing weight. I've never actually had that be the case. When I pried further, they were not eating 1,000 calories. They might have been for a couple of days and then over consuming every third or fourth day, or they thought they were and they didn't realize their snacking and dinner was, larger than they thought it was.
That seems like the biggest problem, right? Is just the lack of discipline in like the fitness community, or like people, I guess, just trying to lose weight in general, not necessarily the fitness community.
Discipline's interesting. We could actually talk about that later because I have some. It probably will go against everything you believe, but it's just a good thought experiment to talk about discipline. But we'll put that on the table for now.
So we got carnivore and discipline over here.
Yeah.
On this side of the table.
But I mean, you're not wrong in that, like, if it was, I mean, it's like, like you want to lose weight, just eat less.
Yeah.
Like, in a sense, it is that, but there's a lot behind it. It's, I mean, a lot of it is just emotions. Like the reward of food is very strong.
Yeah.
So like the reason why obesity is a thing right now, it's our brains have these evolutionarily conserved wiring that makes us seek food.
Yeah.
Let me back this up. So thousands of years ago, food was not easily accessible and it wasn't as rewarding. So there's a term called hyperpalatability, which basically speaks of how rewarding a food is, how much it can override your brain circuitry that says I'm full to the point where you could keep eating it. Think of, again, Twix or Oreos. If you just had your Thanksgiving meal and I brought you a plate of broccoli and you were stuffed, you'd be like, no, dude, I'm good.
Yeah.
If I brought you Oreos, Twix, pie, whatever, you could be, you could be like, I could fit that in.
I'll make room.
And the reason is that it's more hyper palatable. It's more rewarding. You're going to listen to that mechanism in your brain that's saying, yes, let's consume this. It's
very interesting.
It's good. Over the part of your brain that's not as loud, that's saying, no, dude, you're full. Like you don't need to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our brain wiring hasn't changed in thousands of years, but now we have food so easily accessible, right?
It tastes so good.
Yeah, and it tastes so good.
Yeah.
And honestly, we are more fucked up as a society, if I may.
Let's get into it.
If we're being honest. So being more mentally God, what's the even word I'm trying to look for? Having more inner conflict breeds seeking things outside of us to make us feel better, right? To put it that way. And food is
comforting.
It's comforting.
Very much so. So do you think that relates at all to your perspective on discipline? Because it seems like there's more that goes into just having willpower to avoid eating certain foods than just not eating them.
Yeah.
Right.
Discipline is good training wheels, meaning it's good at first, but you can't rely upon it. Meaning if I'm working with a client and she's used to eating, again, just because I'm on it, Twix bars every day. So initially, to break that habit, to start eating some better quality, less processed food, it might require discipline. Ideally, the goal is you get to the point where you want to make that decision on your own. And when you're there, discipline doesn't come into play. Discipline is forcing yourself to do something you don't want to, which oftentimes is required, at least initially.
Yeah.
Ideally, you land somewhere. So my goal with all my clients is self-regulation, meaning, even if I'm having somebody track, I don't want them to track their calories forever. If I'm anything like that is just a tool to use temporarily. Self-regulation is living in a place where you've achieved your weight goal, you look the way you want to, and you can maintain it easily without stressing about it, overthinking about food or whatever. That's not discipline. That's being okay and making choices because you want to make those choices, and those choices just happen to keep you at the weight you're at and at the health you want to maintain.
Yeah, so it's like creating a new lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, that is what everyone should shoot. Like most people don't even realize that is their goal until I say it. You know, you like, yes, let's lose the weight, but let's get to the point of being able to self-regulate with food. And most people will, even if they lose weight, regain weight. So think of like going back to like, okay, you're doing a keto diet or a paleo, like the downside of those things, one, they're just not necessary. You could follow them, but they're not necessary. Two, they're notoriously hard to stick to, of course. But three, you don't learn anything. So if you go on a ketogenic diet, for example, again, if you're, you know, John Doe or Jane Smith, you don't know anything about nutrition. Your friend said, I lost $40 on or lost 40 pounds on keto.
Yeah.
You should do it. Then you're like, okay. And even if you muster up the ability to stick to it, awesome. You lose the weight. However, the whole time you didn't learn anything other than how to not eat carbohydrate. And that's not a useful tool. Meaning when you want to go eat normally again or eat carbs again, you don't know how to do that. You don't, it's nuance, but you didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
Tracking is nice because you at least learn something. I like being even more subtler than just tracking. If I could just say, eat 3 meals a day, stop eating at 70% full, and divide your plate into thirds, that's super ambiguous. Most people have a hard time just following that, but compare that to, so if I tell one person to do that and I tell another person to eat no carbohydrate, the person who I told not to eat any carbohydrate might lose weight initially. And the person who I gave those 3 ambiguous cues to, 70% full, 3 meals a day, divide your plate into thirds, will struggle and flail their arms until they figure out what that means for them. But when that person figures out what that means, they will be way better off than the person I just said don't eat carbs, because they will have to fill in all the blank spots that I did not provide them.
Yeah.
In their own mental, here's how I deal with food, versus a person who is not eating carbohydrate. And that's like, it's black and white.
Yeah.
I mean, humans tend to like black and white rules initially because it's easy to grasp onto. Okay, got it. But the subtlety of those 3 things, and it's not sexy, right? Like no one's making millions of dollars telling people online, join my program where I'm going to tell you to eat till you're 70% full and you're going to learn what that means for you. No. And even like I don't market, like I give people what they need, but I bring them in with, we do macros and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, that is the best way to learn anything. It's like, there's no, you read all those like 5 steps to doing this, like that stuff doesn't tend to work. The less information I could give you and the more blank spots you have to fill in yourself, the more you will learn and the way far better off you will be.
I like that idea though, because it forces you at first to want to figure it out. So like now you have to go about systematically figuring it out for yourself. If you're just given the answer, there's no real like want or why there. Like I think figuring out yourself is tenfold more important, because you actually actively have to want to solve the problem yourself or you'll never figure it out.
Yes, you just pinpointed why most people don't get what they think they want or achieve what they think they want to achieve because they didn't really want it.
Yeah.
Meaning, so it's almost hard. Like I'm not trying to be hard, but if you want something, you'll get it.
Yeah.
And anything you have in your life, you have it because you wanted it. Yeah. And if you don't have it, you just didn't want it. Or
didn't want it bad enough. Yeah.
Right. And that sounds almost too simplistic, but to a degree, it is 100% true. Meaning, someone wants to go on a ketogenic diet. Okay, don't eat carbs. Like me telling you that, if you don't want it, like you might ride with that for a little bit, but you won't implement it to the extent needed. Whereas, again, the reason why I could give somebody those 3 ambiguous things, if they're successful, and, if I do that I'm not as ambiguous with the client, I'm guiding them a little bit, but if I told a random Joe Schmo that they're successful, they're successful because they really wanted it. That hunger is what gets people where they want to be. Most people think they're hungry, but they're not.
It's very true.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll just be bored and I'll just want to eat food.
Yeah,
bored
totally.
eating, that's a real thing, man. That's a real, that's a trouble of mine.
Sure. How I help people get around that, if I'm being honest, a couple things. One, desensitize your palate, eat bland food for a week.
See, I've had that idea. Like, well, actually, I had that idea with coffee. We were talking about that the other day.
That's interesting. I've never heard that before.
I feel like I consume too much coffee or too much caffeine in general, and part of the reason is because I make really good coffee. So, like, I'm just constantly wanting to drink coffee because it also tastes very good. Yeah. Now, he just drinks black coffee, and I've been thinking, like, maybe one way to, like, hack my own brain is to just start drinking black coffee so I want it less because it tastes worse.
Yes.
That's a theory that I've somewhat came up with for coffee in my own mind, but it makes a lot of sense.
It would help. Yeah, it's literally about reducing the reward.
Yeah.
So, like, for your coffee, it's like the reward is high now. Like, it's very good. So you look forward to that. So desensitizing is kind of pulling back the reward. Like, you switching to black coffee, the first few times you're like, oh, this is, it's not that great. And then after a few days, honestly, like, you'll be like fine with it.
Yeah,
like,
used to it.
Right now, I'm adding creamer to coffee. I never did that before. Sorry, I haven't done that in a while, but I'm in a phase of, like, I appreciate my creamer when I have coffee.
Yeah.
And if I have it black, it won't be as exciting.
Yeah.
I'll, like, be kind of annoyed. But it's just, that is my baseline right now.
That one's hard for me, the coffee specifically, because it's how I always start my day. And a lot of the times that's like how I win my morning is by enjoying my coffee. It just gives me that extra edge on doing, like, a lot of the things I have to get done in the morning.
Sure.
So I feel like in making it worse, like, I don't know if that would be as beneficial for me versus just drinking it how I normally do and then just keeping my regular routine as strong as it is.
Sure.
I think that's an interesting idea, though, because I think that food kind of has two different purposes in that it is important to function. Like, we need food to function and live and continue to survive, but it also serves as something very pleasurable. So I think when you're desensitizing yourself with maybe reducing seasoning or flavors and all that other stuff, you're treating the food as more of a tool and a fuel source rather than a pastime and a pleasurable experience, if that makes sense.
Yes,
right?
100%.
And that's like an interesting balance that you have to probably create for yourself. It's like, how are you going to perceive food as something that is a fuel for you to allow you to continue to live how you want to live? Or is it something that is very pleasurable for you and something you get an enjoyment out of?
Yes. And I think it can be both. I mean, 100% it's both.
I love food, though.
Yeah.
I love eating food.
I think most people do.
Yes. Some people are just too far on the other side of it's a pleasure, right?
Yeah.
Obviously there's extremes to that. Like, food is addicting.
Very much, yeah.
In that sense. But even people who are just, like, who are a bit overweight, like, desensitizing themselves, desensitizing their palate, that's just the name I put on it, would 100% benefit them. In that you won't think or crave food as much. It's just how it is. Especially if you're used to more rewarding, hyper-palatable items, or even just like creating the ritual of, like, oh, I can't wait to go home and have my meal. It's the same meal I have every night, and I really look forward to it. Like, that's fine. But sometimes there's, like, if I hear a rigidity in it, like, with certain clients, like, I'll hear, like, oh, I need to have this when I go home. Like, I might not do it right then and there, but I will take that away from them. If I'm being honest, because those rigid constraints, like, routine is good, but when routine is overly rigid, I think it could backfire. When it's like, oh, I need to be able to do this, whether it's food or any sort of routine. I think we should be more flexible. I think we do far better when we run into a routine. I know somebody, for example, goes to work, comes home, does laundry, watches TV. This is a bit of a different, routine could be, waking up and, like, running 5 miles, and, eating something. Routine could be anything. But whenever there's rigidity behind it, I find that if I can reduce that person's desire to follow that routine, they often find that other areas in their life open up. Like, their quality of life just improves because they were so freaking square about that one thing.
That's interesting. So to live more spontaneously in terms of, like, what you're eating, but also what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
yes and no. Yes, when you're getting too far on one side. Like if you need that meal at 5 o'clock and it's the same thing every day, switch it up. It's about time.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. Initially, so a lot of times I'll have clients eat the same thing for the first few weeks, like similar breakfast, lunch, and dinner, especially if they're prepping their food themselves. I want it to be simple. There's nothing wrong with that at all. If somebody like freaks out because I say I'm going to take away their popcorn before before bed that they always snack on, that's a sign that like, all right, I might not take it away right now, but I'm going to strongly suggest we work on that in the future.
That's really interesting because you have to manage other people's eating as well as your own. So I find it hard for me to just do it on my own and having to manage that for hundreds of people.
That's what I was just going to ask. Like, what is that process like? Like, obviously you can control what you can control to a certain extent, but like for your actual clients, it's like, how do you, I guess, shine a better outlook or insight into like what it actually means to eat right? Like, how do you convey that to them effectively?
So 2 things. So the Fit AF meal prep is different than the nutrition coaching, for example. So nutrition coaching, I work with maybe 20 clients, and then I have coaches that work with clients. So it's not necessarily that I'm talking to everybody who purchases meals, which is a few hundred people every week.
Yeah.
But in terms of, so one, if you purchase meals from us, all the meals on the menu, I mean, my chef helped me create them. I'm not saying I created them, but they are meals with components that I think are the best that should be in a meal. Meaning, if you get our meals, you're eating what I and many, honestly, people would say is probably the best things you could be eating in terms of quality of food and how they're portioned. It sounds arrogant, but it's honestly true. So if for clients, so it's like, well, what do I eat? Well, a few things. I like to set up, like the less you could think about food, the better. And that's partially why I'm a big fan of meal prep. Whether you prep food yourself or buy it from us or another meal prep company. If you're trying to lose weight and you have to think about every meal, every time you go to eat and have to figure out how much to put on your plate and have to cook it or whatever it might be, like the more thought that goes into every meal, the worse off you're going to be.
Yeah, consumes more of your day, more of your time.
Yes, you're going to make more errors, especially just based out of emotion of like, I feel like eating this versus here's what I should eat and the quantity of what it should be. So one, it's create systems and standards, meaning I'm a big fan of just 3 meals a day and 1 snack.
Really?
3 meals a day, put 1 snack between your largest meal gap. Keep similar meal times each day and eat similar amounts for those meals. If most people who are struggling to lose weight right now did just that, they would probably lose weight. Again, super basic, right?
Yeah.
And not sexy. not even a little bit. But that creates consistency in their hunger.
Yeah.
They're not going periods without eating and then over consuming, which is what gets most people, if we're being honest. A lot of people are great at constricting calories during the day and then overconsume at night. During the day, you're busy, you're working, you could have a crouton for lunch and be okay, and you think you're killing it. And then you go home and you have all the food accessible to you. You're bored, your willpower is low, you're tired, you're stressed, and you just want to feel good. And even if you think, especially if you're not measuring anything, which I'm not saying you should, but your body, especially from having not really eaten anything throughout the day, will drive you to consume and then some. And that's what most people struggle with. That's causing most people to not be as successful as they would like to be, if we're being honest. And it's a hard one to see because you think you're doing good.
Yeah. That's a phenomenon I used to experience. Is I would be able to go like virtually an entire work shift without even thinking about food. But then the moment I would leave work, I would start getting that like weird headache from being hungry, like the headache everybody experiences when they start getting too hungry. But it would come like at the blink of an eye, out of nowhere. But it was always around the same time when I would leave work, similar to like what you're describing.
That is interesting. We are creatures of habit, right?
Yeah.
That reminds me of Steve Jobs. He wore the same exact thing every single day to limit his decision making and create more time for himself to focus on things that were more important to him.
It's interesting.
But one question what were you saying?
I was just gonna say there's something to that. And I literally wear Fit AF shirt shorts
Yeah.
like all the time.
Gotta keep your eye on the prize.
That made me interested. I really want to, like, one day I'll get more into like a minimalistic style of like the way that I dress. Like maybe have like 5 shirts, 5 pairs of pants, and that's it. And then just wear like a combination of whatever those
Lex
things
Friedman
are.
style, just rock the
Yeah.
tux on the pod.
I think that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty badass. But side note though, what I wanted to ask you about was 3 meals a day. I think is pretty interesting. What do you think about the recent popularity of fasting and also some of the evolutionary benefits that it supposedly has? Like in ancient times, we weren't able to eat 3 times a day. We had to hunt, and we went time without eating, and that supposedly has benefits on the body. And I just want to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's I'll keep it shorter.
Because that is calorie deficit, right?
Yeah. So that's square one is fasting helps people lose weight not because of insulin being lower when you're fasting or the lower amount of meals you eat a day. That's not why it helps people lose weight. It helps people lose weight because through shortening your feeding window from say 12 p.m. to 8, like in the 16-8 fasting, you might eat less calories, and that's what it is. And it's not a guarantee. Obviously, if you're tracking on top of that, that'll only help. If you're eating 1 meal a day, sure, it's going to be hard to eat more calories than you need, thus to gain weight from eating 1 meal a day. However, so the point of that is just saying it's not necessary. In terms of what you said, okay, so the other part of that is, people touting the benefits of intermittent fasting. Right now, so the majority of the benefits that have been researched and have been touted by people, say online, are benefits that they tie to intermittent fasting made my blood glucose levels lower. Intermittent fasting made these blood panel numbers better. It was not that. In most of the research, it was the weight loss itself was the driver for those positive benefits.
Yeah.
People tie it to, so that's the thing with diets and research. That's a big one, especially with influencers online. Oh, the keto diet shows, all these improvements. Intermittent fasting shows all these improvements. No, losing weight is just as a blanket improves almost everything.
Yes.
100%.
Interesting.
So that's a big thing that needs to be stated, that a lot of the research, even autophagy and all those things that really, senescent cell death, where they talk about proteins and cells that, could be cancerous, kill themselves when you're fasting. That doesn't even occur until about 3 days in a fast. So that's not something you're going to get through intermittent fasting. It can occur with weight loss in general, but in terms of just fasting, it won't occur until about 3 days in, I believe, is what they show. Beyond that, is there something to fasting? Perhaps, yeah. I like to fast every once in a while.
Yeah.
I become very because I am a child of discipline, if I'm being honest. There's something like I like sitting on the tip of a spike, for better or worse. And again, we could talk more about discipline. So I like the pain and the discomfort of making myself not eat. Because honestly, discipline feels good because it's the comparison of that sucked for a while and now I'm eating again and it feels so much better because I didn't eat for a day and oh my God, it's so good. But there's something to, I think, yes, do I want to be hungry every 3.5 hours and be a slave to my hunger to go eat food? Does fasting for a day every few weeks make my blood sugar maybe a little bit more manageable, my ability to monitor my hunger and satiety signals better? I think it does, yes. Is it better for longevity? The jury's still out. It seems like it could be, but most of the research is in animal models where they show fasting protocols on worms and stuff, and they live twice as long. Again, a lot of that is driven from caloric reduction. Like these animal model studies that show the flies, the worms, whatever, live twice as long. They were also consuming way less calories.
Yeah,
so
how applicable is that to like a human being's life though? Like that's always what I've wondered about, like animal studies with anything. Like people, or they test makeup on rabbits and whatnot. Like how applicable is that to a human's life?
You ever seen a rabbit with lipstick? It's super hot.
No.
Bing. We're going to put a rabbit with lipstick.
Man. It depends. So ultimately, it is and it isn't. And it depends on what sort of testing they're doing and on what areas. I mean, we have similarities with worms. Sure, we have similarities with everything, but there's clearly more differences between a human and a worm than there is a human and a primate. Yeah. Primate studies are very expensive, as are human studies, which is why, they start with that stuff. It's just also an easier intervention depending on what they're doing.
Yeah. We heard we did a podcast with this guy named Kyle Burrell who studies like neural pathways and like helping people improve just your overall performance, and he does a lot of his tests are all done on humans, and he said doing like these tests or going about getting the approval to do any research on humans is like damn near impossible.
Yes.
It's like it's virtually impossible unless there's like no health risk, which what he does, there's virtually no health risk.
Yeah, getting the approval. It's tough. I mean, that's a whole area in and of itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, to finish up on intermittent fasting, if it works for somebody, awesome. For most people, doing it because they think they have to, stop. I do think, though, yes, there's something to, if you could go a day without eating every once in a while, if you could go 2 or 3 days without eating, amazing. It certainly won't hurt. You will lose muscle if you go prolonged. So Peter Attia, who's...
how do I know that name, Peter?
He's done the podcast.
He's been on Rogan.
Doctor...
He's a really interesting guy.
Yeah. He's funny, though, because and I appreciate him changing his mind. So he was big into the carb insulin model for obesity. So basically, the reason why they thought carbs were and low-carb diets were better for obesity, so keto and things like that. And he really pushed that for a while, and then he learned, I was wrong, and he admitted it, which I appreciate. Meaning, though, so his nutrition information was misguided for a while. He, in terms of fasting, though, also used to say, a lot of them used to say that fasting is lean tissue protective, meaning you're not going to lose muscle. When ketones are high, you're primarily using that and fat as fuel, and you're not going to tap into muscle. But he recently came out and said, I wish I didn't fast as often as I did, because he lost a ton of muscle.
Really?
He would do like 7 and 10 day fasts. And that's what, it makes sense. Like, you're going, negative thousands of calories over the course of 10 days. You're going to pull some muscle out of it. So that's kind of the thing to, don't go down too far down the rabbit hole of fasting without that, because that's not good for anybody. I mean, one, it's not good for us who just like to, look good and have muscle, but as you get older, you're going to lose muscle anyway, and holding muscle and strength are strong predictors of just longevity and overall health, and not dying early, for being honest.
So what's your process in like the fitness world like? Like, what do you do to maintain? What's your like regimen like, or what style of workout works best for you?
I do what I can, meaning, so like, people always say like, and this isn't because I look a certain way, but like, you're into the fitness stuff, you have this company FitAF, like you must work out every day for an extended period of time. And I don't. I probably lift weights 4 times a week and do a couple bouts of cardio, maybe 2 times a week. I'm probably exercising for like 8 hours total a week, which is maybe actually a good amount compared to the average. But I just like to be well-rounded, healthy, and if I'm being honest, look good naked.
Fuck, you need that why, man.
Yes. So for me, lifting is, I have some like hip and shoulder dysfunction, so I'm not in there deadlifting hundreds of pounds, bench pressing. I'm doing and I would never say the term functional training by any means, just because I hate
Naughty
that term.
Aguilar.
Yeah,
patterns.
I also don't like that guy. I know nothing about him. I just don't like his face.
Yeah,
that sounds so petty. Another thing I shouldn't say. But no, I'm God. I mean, basic lifting stuff. Just usually things with a higher core stability focus. So
compound lifts.
Yeah, compound lifts with some core stability focus, like doing presses and rows from tall kneeling, half kneeling position. Stressing myself that way versus having to bench press. Instead of bench pressing, hundreds of pounds because my shoulder's screwed up, I'm doing a one-arm slight incline bench press, maybe with my feet pressed into the wall and my butt tucked under to enhance my shoulder blade gliding on my rib cage. If that makes any sense, but I won't go in the weeds. Somewhat traditional lifting mixed with some weird nuanced stuff that I've just picked up from years of training. God, that sounds so boring and lame.
That's good, man. Now, is that anything you implement to like your current business model? Like, is getting into the actual realm of fitness something that you guys do or no?
Traditionally, no. I get asked all the time, like, can you help me with this? And I'm always happy to help people. Like, I love programming workouts.
Yeah.
With my nutrition coaching clients, I do program their workouts as well. But outside of that, not really too much. I honestly eventually probably will have a part of the business that is fitness and training related, whether it's helping people program workouts, whether it's an app or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You guys already have an app, right? FitAF app?
We actually don't. Our nutrition coaching, we have an app, but for the actual website, we do not. We might get one, but truthfully, I don't think it's 100% necessary. I mean, it's going to the website's relatively straightforward. The app would just be a little bit more convenient. The only reason why we might do it is so we could use push notifications, if I'm being honest, just to alert people like, hey, don't forget to place your order and stuff. But as of right now, no, we don't have an app. But yeah, in terms of my stuff, lifting 4 days a week, so if I'm programming for somebody or just anybody at home, like how to think about programming for yourself or how to think about what to do in the gym, I really like, so dividing upper and lower, upper horizontal push and pull and vertical push and pull. So horizontal push and pull is bench pressing movements and rowing variations. Vertical push and pull is overhead pressing, overhead pulling, think chin-ups and pull-downs. And then lower body, I think of it as knee dominant and hip dominant. Knee dominant, the exact definition is more than 45 degrees of knee flexion. Hip dominant is less than 45 degrees of knee flexion. So basically thinking knee dominant squat, I'm squatting down. Hip dominant, think deadlift variations.
Yeah.
My knees aren't bending too much. It's more posterior chain, glutes, hams, things like that. Dividing, that was a game changer years ago when I found that way of dividing or thinking of my workouts and my movement patterns through that. I think the world of chest Monday and back Tuesday needs to be long gone, simply because things like exercise frequency are important. So like hitting a muscle 2 times a week is better than 1. Obviously volume is very important, but dividing your workouts into smart, sensible ways where you're not getting, where you're hitting multiple muscles multiple times a week. So upper body, horizontal push pull and vertical push pull, you're still getting things like shoulders and everything's more or less getting hit there twice. And if you want to add a little bit more chest on vertical push pull, you can. Again, I don't want to go too much in the weeds here, but something to think about.
Interesting. I recently got into like just doing calisthenic based workouts, and I typically do that every day, and it's been working really well for me. Oh, I thought you were talking to them. But I felt like so far my body has felt, well, I mean, tied in with jiu-jitsu as well, because we've been going there once or twice a week. With the calisthenics, it feels like my body is in one of the best conditions it's ever been in, just doing that. And I've only been doing, I'm doing virtually the same things minus like a couple workouts, I kind of intertwine some things, but virtually 5 days a week, I'm doing the same thing, and that works for me fairly well.
I'm curious, what are you doing?
Like your simple calisthenics, pull-ups, push-ups, dips, squats, variations of all these different things, like different forms of push-ups, chin-ups, regular pull-ups. What do you call the middle one? Neutral grip.
Yeah.
Different squats, like knees over toes squats, regular squats, hack squats. Also like low back exercises. What else? And then I try to always do some shoulders as well. I like to like keep my shoulders moving because I've experienced major shoulder problem virtually my entire life. So that's something I try to stay on top of as well.
Yeah, you can get that's awesome. You could get a great workout with weights, without weights. I mean, you could literally do anything. And it really comes down to one, are you working hard?
Yeah.
I saw something recent. I think it was Lane Norton talking about, he got asked, look at all these people, these influencers who don't know anything about periodization and programming and how to add volume and blah, 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 blah. And how are they still big? Like, I don't get it. They don't even program their workouts all that great. And he's basically like, well, they work really fucking hard.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. Like, you don't even need it. Like, getting into the weeds and having good programming, great, but it doesn't trump just hard ass work.
Okay. Another thing I was actually relatively interested in too was how did you go, and this is completely off topic of the fitness. Well, not necessarily, but what was the actual like meat and potatoes of starting your business like? So like from the time you got the idea going into like the actual operations, like how did that start? Like, how did you actually like go from just having the idea to actually like carrying out objectively how you were going to do what you now have?
Right. God, I have to think. One, find a location, because I was doing it out of my house or my client's house. And two, figure out how to reach people. And I started, and I'm still at a facility in Carbondale called the Carbondale Technology Transfer Center. And that worked great initially because I didn't have any upfront costs. So this was a building. I didn't have to put a bunch of money down. I could more or less lease on a weekly basis. And in terms of getting to people, I went to all the gyms and I said, can I set up a table and hand out samples?
Yeah.
Yeah. I literally went to all the gyms, set up a table and just talk to people. And that's what got it going. And we still do that today. We do a lot of events and we work with all the gyms in the area.
Yeah.
But yeah, initially I think it was, okay, I really need a facility to work out and I need to find clients.
Yeah.
So those were like the two initial things. And then there was all the other, there's like the boring business stuff. Okay. What sort of structure am I? What sort of licensing do I need? Of course. And then it's, all right, here we are, and it's just me. And it's like, all right, who's my first employee going to be?
Working with food, I'd imagine that's pretty hard, right? To like get those clearances and stuff.
It's not, it is a bit of a pain. It's not super crazy. There's so many bodies. So we work with we're overseen by FDA, USDA, and I guess those are the big ones. So USDA is the big one that oversees us. And it's mainly by the nature of what we do. Like we ship or we deliver meals across state lines.
Yeah.
We are not just like overseen by a Scranton municipality. That's why actually the FDA is involved, because we do cross state lines. So we are monitored by all avenues, which is good. From like a consumer point of view, it's awesome. Clearly, and it keeps businesses doing what they should be doing with good practices. But yeah, it's a headache sometimes.
That's actually something I didn't know. I didn't know you guys do out of the state. That's pretty interesting. How long did it take until you were actually able to do that?
So we just got into northern Delaware and we've been in western Jersey for a little bit. We just really hit Philly and northern Delaware hard. I bought a business in Philadelphia, and that really helped get our foot in the door because we kind of took over what they were doing in that area. And that was just earlier this year. It's interesting.
That's awesome. You guys bought a business out there?
Yes.
How'd that work? How'd that go?
Fuck, you're good, man. We'll cut it out.
It was interesting. It was basically really us just buying their list, and we initially kind of white labeled. So it's this company, Pivotal Nutrition. And we kept Pivotal open. Pivotal is still open. We're basically fulfilling for them. And at a certain time, probably later this year, we will just merge Pivotal with FitAF. But we wanted to maintain the brand. I mean, they built a great brand, and what they were doing was great. So we've just kind of maintained it. But yeah, it got us instant access to Northern Delaware, which is amazing.
That's pretty cool. So with that type of move, do you plan on continuing to scale this, or are you kind of content where it's at right now? What's your whole goal for FitAF?
That's a really good question.
Want to build a fucking empire and conquer the northern seaboard, or
so
pay the bills at the end of the month?
Kind of build and conquer.
That's what I like.
That's good.
But we're in a predicament now of running out of space where we are not having really any great options of places to move, and wanting to build. So ideally we're building from scratch, but the issues right now are, there's a lot. So basically, we might, take on another company, which would expand us, which we would be good until the end of the year. But moving into January 1st, where we really become busy, if I did that and we didn't move, we might be screwed. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do that. I just started a catering company, Cuisine Rustique.
I heard of that.
Did you?
Yeah, there's a van, right? There's a van.
Oh, no, not yet, at least. Oh, okay. Shit. Maybe I hope there's not another Cuisine Rustique.
I saw something, cuisine something on a van somewhere.
I wish I could say that was us already. But no, this is very entry levels. We're specifically doing it for this place called the Hilltop Castle, Hilltop Mansion. It's a really crazy estate out in Beach Lake. They get a lot of people throughout the country that come there, rent out their facility, and we're doing all their catering. Anyways, I love saying yes to opportunities, and we're just getting to the point of, okay, well, if we build, it's going to be a year and a half, 2 years. So we were trying to find a warehouse to build a brand new kitchen in the warehouse, and we haven't found anything there.
That'd be awesome.
Right. I mean, my ultimate goal is just to build from scratch and have a really beautiful facility. Yeah. We're trying to figure out the time. So ultimately, to answer your question, yeah, we want to continue to expand. We've been people like us, like we're doing. Yeah. Sounds weird to say, but like we're doing good. I think we have a good thing, a good product, and we can certainly continue to grow. This is just like the big thing staring us all in the face right now. Where are we going to be in 6 months?
That's the hardest part, is like trying to like get a vivid idea of what, I mean, because it's virtually uncontrollable. There's really no way of telling what it'll look like for you in that amount of time, but it's good to like, I think it's great to have the plan. Like it's cool to see that you guys actually want to like take it far. What's like your, do you have like a 5-year, 10-year goal plan for it? Like for what you want to do with your whole, like your business side of your life, or just with FitAF in general? Like, do you have a plan?
The answer to that should be yes, but it's no. I have rough idea. I mean, I have a 3-year and a rough idea for 5-year. Really, we want to continue doing what we're doing. Yeah. We want to grow. And I don't know, eventually, whether I am lucky enough to be able to sell it, I can't imagine. All right, I do have like kind of a rough plan.
Let's hear it, man. Come
on. If I'm being very honest, the idea that just something I literally kind of created on a whim that like I think of sometimes is continue to grow the business, doing what we're doing, have different avenues of things we do. So, obviously more meal offerings, doing things like workout programs and stuff like that, whatever we do. And then sell the business at 40 and go do something for 2 years. That something is either live in the woods in a cave.
That's sick.
Get primal.
That's like genuine. That's something you want to do. That's so interesting.
Honestly,
man.
so Yes. It's funny because I'm very like I always need to be doing something. I'm not good at not doing anything, but I do appreciate when I do get in those deep mind states from either meditation or like I've taken trips. I recently went to New York and spent a few days by myself, no phone.
Yeah.
Like in this really
That's awesome.
shitty cabin, if I'm being honest.
No, that's cool, man. That's shit I think about like often.
Yeah. I love Eastern philosophy, all that stuff. So,
that's awesome.
It takes me a while to get to that space where I'm like super content living in, living in a cave. But I really look forward to that idea that I could do that.
Especially based off your current life too. Like it's so hard to think like going from what you're doing now to making that jump to living that lifestyle. That's always like the brick wall that gets put up in my life is thinking like, well, how the hell do I get from where I am right now to being able to do like some of those wild, crazy adventures that I want to do in the future?
Yes.
Bridging that gap.
We should get into the Eastern philosophy thing because I'm pretty interested too.
Okay.
What do you think it is why do you think that a hermit needs to go into the woods by himself to find enlightenment? Why can't you find it in modern society or in the village or in the cities per se?
I think it's exposure. It's very hard while being around people who are constantly reiterating to you who you are, who they think you are. It's hard to get to those deeper levels, I would imagine, while being constantly exposed to society.
Interesting.
I really think that's it.
So you think that the masks that other people portray upon you and the character that you have to fulfill in society, maybe the different hats that you have to wear as a friend to this person, to, maybe a girlfriend, maybe a bunch of other characters in your life, takes you away to who you could really be in like your most natural setting.
100,000%.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. What particularly, what do you like to read in Eastern philosophy? Have you read like the Tao Te Chings,
Yeah, I've read whose interpretation? Wayne Dyer did an interpretation of the Tao Te Ching. I went through. I haven't actually read like the base Tao Te Ching or the. I'm gonna ruin the name. Bhagavad Gita.
The Bhagavad Gita. We were just talking about that the other day. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I have not read the actual Bhagavad Gita. Just interpretations of it. I like people. So there's a somewhat of a newer age guy right now, Kapil Gupta, who's fantastic at putting things into words that are very hard to put into words. And honestly, a lot of my Eastern philosophy as of late and the things I think about now, even as life as a whole, are stem from what I've read and seen from him, in that he really makes you think. Like the discipline thing, my views on discipline have changed slightly. I still am somebody who feels like I need to jump in a cold tub first thing in the morning and do all that. But they've changed a bit in that you can make the argument that discipline is an anxiety. Discipline and hard work, again, this is a thought exercise, come from a place of being 50% or more unsure that you're going to reach your goal, basically. So hard work. Why do people work hard? Hard work is a necessity, sure, but those people, so your Michael Jordans, your people who have really like accomplished just crazy things, arguably weren't, to them, working that hard. They were just doing what they couldn't help but do. Hard work, I think, can be an anxiety that comes from not really feeling like you're actually going to reach your goal and wanting to be able to at least tell yourself that you worked hard so that when you don't reach your goal, you don't feel bad about yourself.
So in some way you think it's like a defense mechanism.
I think it can be.
That's interesting.
It is very interesting. Who just brought up a very similar point to that recently that we were discussing? Virtually that same idea.
I'm not sure.
I lost it. I can't think.
I have to piss real quick. I'll be right back.
Same thing with like hope. Like hope is only utilized by people when, again, you don't actually believe you're going to get where you want to get.
Yes.
So you hope, like, why not actually just get there?
Okay.
Again,
so it's,
thought exercise.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, that's very interesting though, man. Going back to what you were saying before though about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like you were moving more towards, you were talking about the cave thing. We were talking about you living your 2-year goal, living in a cave. It seemed like you were building towards something else though, that we might have moved past. Is that true?
No, it's kind of like 40, sell the business, 2 years in a cave, and then I have no idea.
Really?
So the thought is, after being in solitude, which again, I hope my girlfriend doesn't listen to this, that my idea of what I want to do and how I want to live the rest of my life will drastically change.
So is your goal to discover that during that time?
Oh God. I don't almost want to say yes, because it's like, then I'm going to look at myself and be like, you're delaying your life 10 years just so you could live in a cave and then figure out what you want. I would almost say, like, this is what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
100%. And for the next chapter of my life, I think the deeper I can get in terms of thinking about what I want to do and what my actual motives are, then that is how I want to spend the rest of my life. Because, after I move on from this, like, it'll be easy to just want to jump to something, like, to keep myself busy. Like, I don't want to do something just to keep myself busy.
Yeah. That's kind of like my dilemma, is like, I feel like I can endlessly find things to fill that void, but I don't know if I'll ever find anything that's powerful enough to make me like solely locked in on that thing. Like it is for this right now in this whole chapter of my life, and like knowing what I'm working towards. I don't know how easy it would be for me to just find another one of those things that like will consume another 20 years of my life, if that makes sense. Like I have endless curiosities. I can fill that void till the end of time, but finding like an actual passion again, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that.
You would find it in the curiosities. So say you moved on from this, you would take something you're mildly curious about, give it a little bit of energy, and then that's where the passion comes from. Like that's like, it's literally curiosity and then passion.
Yeah.
And passion like is cool, but it usually isn't the starting place. Like no one's like, oh, I'm so passionate about this, I'm going to make it a business. If they do, it usually actually backfires.
Yeah.
But usually it's something, oh, I'm kind of curious about this. Like, let me, maybe I'll do a couple podcasts, and then you invest the time and energy, you develop mastery, you start feeling good about it. Like all these are intrinsic drivers for motivation, and that's what brings about the passion.
Yeah, it becomes a passion or an obsession somewhere along the journey.
Yes.
It's like, it definitely wasn't like that for us from the start. It was something that we had to build.
Yes.
And then like at some point it just makes sense.
Yeah. And it'll always go back. Like right now, like I'm in a very strong grit mode, if I'm being completely honest. Like talk about, like as much as I, have this view of discipline as like, and hard work as an anxiety, like truthfully, like half the time I'm working really hard. Yeah. And it is, I see the anxiety there, and I haven't gotten myself to a place where I am intrinsically motivated to the highest degree that I would want to be, where I just do things. Like, no, it's like shit's got to get done. And the business isn't going to wait around for me to meditate and figure out what I need to figure out. It's a great avenue for, like, as you said, like personal growth, from what you're doing, like, business is great for that. You learn a lot about yourself, and the best thing you could do is to view it as such so that you don't get stuck. Because when you take things too personally and you become emotionally tied to things and how you're viewed, you will get stuck. And I've gotten stuck a lot over the past 5 years.
Wow.
Anything like necessarily to like pinpoint it to?
It's tough. So my struggle, like even right now, it's like bits of overwhelm. Like I am maybe a little ADHD. So when we have multiple projects going on, my anxiety is, I'm going to forget something and drop the ball and not have something move forward. And that manifests in like a bit of like like a hurried sense of, okay, we got to get stuff done.
Yeah.
And when you're in a constant state of hurry, your quality of life is not good. I deal with this. So honestly, I deal with this a lot with clients whenever I get like type A's who are, either have businesses or, whatever, are constantly running from one thing to the next, dropping kids off, going to work. If I could get them to slow down, their weight improves. That sounds very interesting. I mean, we're doing other things, but just getting them to slow down, their weight improves and their quality of life goes up.
That's very interesting.
But it's hard to, like, especially when you're in it and shit's got to get done.
Yeah.
Like, you got to get shit done.
See, that's odd because I feel like I almost thrive, like, when my life is the most chaotic. Like, it seems like when I have the most things going on is when I'm the most on top of everything.
That's
that
awesome.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Oddly, I don't know. I've never been able to really figure out why.
You're staying on top of the stress well. It's like you're meeting it. Like, the stress of everyday life is rising and you're meeting it. And it's when the stress overcomes for whatever reason because it's just so much, or you're not adapting to that stress well, that's where the overwhelm, the perceived stress comes from.
I kind of lied in a way too, because I think I do know what it is, and I think it's my deep desire to, like, problem solve. I find so much, like, mental clarity in solving problems that I'm experiencing in my life. So it could be anything. Like, it could be as simple as, like, just having to go edit a podcast. Like, staying on top of it and, like, solving that moment's dilemma gives me a lot of clarity and a lot of, like, power to, like, move forward.
You have a strong growth mindset, which is awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And growth mindset is literally attaching pleasure to the effort.
Yeah.
Rather than a fixed mindset being the opposite, is attaching pleasure to, like, if I said, you're so smart.
Yeah.
Versus, so that's, you could take that and roll with a fixed mindset versus you work so hard at, your podcasting, it's so impressive. The issue, so we're talking about, like, if I said that to a kid, if I said you're so smart, now they're going to be anxious that they have to continue to meet that smartness, basically meaning I have to live up to this label that this person put on me, and now they're almost more worried about not having the label of smart as they are of doing hard work and keeping that label.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
I definitely think I battle with that in ways because of, like, I will put labels on myself, like, kind of similar to how I just did. I love problem solving. So, like, if I'm not able to do it, it hurts. Like, it's like the opposite effect. Like, if I'm not able to solve a problem, I get very emotionally attached to that, like, not being able to do it.
Yes.
And then that is the opposite of the snowball effect. Like, it's very hard for me to build back off of that if I do fail in that way.
Sure. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we're all human, but for the most part, you're still, like, I'm not a big, like, talk to yourself nicely and, like, look in the mirror and say chance. But if your self-talk is more based around the fact of, like, all right, I'm struggling with this problem now, but I am somebody who works its ass off to solve these problems, and that's your identity, then you will go very far.
Shit, I hope so.
The identity conversation is an interesting one.
It is.
Yeah, so, like, I heard, I think I heard Tony Robbins say once that the most powerful force in the universe is the desire to stay consistent with your identity.
Yes.
Which I think is interesting.
That is a good one.
And then off of that, he thinks that you could consciously manufacture your identity. So, like, if you're a person who smokes cigarettes, if you continually, and I'm not sure if this is exactly how it works, but this is at least how I imagine it. If you continually tell yourself, like, I don't want to be the person that smokes. I don't want to be the person that, has to take a break from my kids to go smoke a cigarette and go harm my health. I'm sure it's similar with people who struggle with addiction as well. Like, if you continually are trying to explain to yourself that I am not this type of person, I think that your desire to be consistent with that accusation could potentially drive you away from whatever it is that's harmful to you or that you want to stop. And the opposite is true. Like, if you like similar to Kevin, if you construct the idea that I am a hardworking person, you are going to want to stay consistent with that idea by continually working hard and improving on yourself, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, if you tell yourself I am somebody who smokes cigarettes,
Yeah.
you're going to want to live up to that. And I've heard Tony Robbins say that. And if you're quitting and you're counting on the days, 10 days since I smoked the last cigarette, you're still reiterating the point of you are somebody who smokes and will most likely not move past that, because you have to change your identity to somebody who doesn't smoke.
Yeah.
But yeah, it works both ways, in the positive and negative.
Yeah. That's interesting.
It's an interesting thought. No, that's all I was saying. That's an interesting thought. I actually battled with, I used to smoke weed a lot.
Yes.
And I hated the fact that I smoked weed, but I don't care what anybody says. I think weed is addictive, and it was a really bad habit of mine. And I would find myself doing it all the time. And I'd be like, dude, I want to stop this so bad. And then I would fight with it. And over time, I think what it was that got me to stop doing it was like, yo, I don't want to be this person. And I started to kind of jump over a line of, I'm actually not this person, and I'm working against the habit. And then as I continually galvanize that idea of I'm not this person, I think that's what eventually got me to cut the tie, to say the truth. But I think that's an identity thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. And I'd agree with what you said before. We do have I don't think we're aware of it half the time, but we do have the power to recreate who we are and really decide who we want to be and act. So even with, talking about the realm of discipline, but even so, it's again, thought experiment. I don't currently listen to many podcasts or anything. If I specifically want to learn something, I'll listen to something. Outside of that, I don't. And the reason is, so if we look at the self-development dilemma, the self-development dilemma is people who seek self-development or self-progress. In the act of seeking self-development, you're simultaneously telling yourself you need to be self-developed.
Yes.
So you are constantly reiterating you're not good enough. I need to listen to Tony Robbins or whoever. And believe me, I love Tony Robbins. I need to listen to this to be better, or I'm not good enough. I need to, learn about this or whatever it is. And it becomes, so for me, I'll go through periods of constantly listening to things. And I think I'm learning a lot, but I'm usually doing it to mask the fact that I don't want to be alone with my own thoughts, if I'm being honest.
Yep.
And two, I'm feeling inferior and think that by acquiring more knowledge, more expertise, better habits or something, that I will fix something and make myself feel better. Going back to the Eastern philosophy thing, I think freedom, and I'll have to admit I stole this, freedom is in giving up the need to fix everything. And literally that's true, because when you're constantly trying to fix things, you're telling yourself, I need to be fixed, which is creating that gap and that hole in you. And you will keep searching for the rest of your life.
Yes.
You will never, ever find it.
With self-development, you're almost creating a problem. And I remember that's what I was referring to before, is when we were talking to Jimmy Hedis about it.
Yeah.
You said the same thing. And it was the first time I ever heard that idea, and it was very impactful. I wouldn't say I'm somebody who's very heavily all I think about is self-development, but he made a very good point in that it's very similar to what you just said. If you're constantly seeking ways in which you can be better, then you're constantly telling yourself that there is either a problem or some error in that field of what you're doing, which is not necessarily always bad, because some things it could be very beneficial for. But you can also take other things that you might already have a very good grasp on, find a way to twist it to the fact that maybe it's not good, but it is, and then you're basically creating a problem in your life.
Yes. And I think the difference and I'm not saying don't read a self-development book or anything like that per se, but you have to acknowledge the impetus within you that's driving you to do it. And if you're coming from a place of trying to fill something within yourself, then you will never fill that thing, versus coming from a place of being whole as you are and simply being curious and wanting to learn more, or whatever it might be.
That's interesting.
But that's we all have this chasm, right? That's the nature of being humans. We're all driven to do things. If we felt complete or whole or whatever word you want to put on it, we wouldn't go find food. We wouldn't go find love. We want to go find this. So there has to be some incompletes, or else we'd sit around all day and we wouldn't evolve, and we wouldn't be here today.
Yes.
The issue, and that's dopamine, right? Like dopamine is what gets us off our ass to.
It's the seeking, the anticipation, the hopefully I will receive a reward for my action.
Right. But again, Eastern philosophy, like, what's the biggest thing? Desire is the root of unhappiness.
Yeah, it's all suffering.
Right. Desire, this is Naval Ravikant. Desire is a agreement you make with yourself to not be happy until you attain that thing, which is brutal. And again, spending, like, for me, why I think about this stuff a lot is spending my life that way, waiting for tomorrow to bring about a better day, is not how I want to spend my life. But it's also very, like, in today's society, it's very easy to do that.
Yeah.
It's easy to, even in good things, like, oh, I'm going to invest and I'm going to work out so I'm healthier tomorrow. Like, I fell into this huge, like, in my 20s. I just turned 31. But, like, literally my 20s were literally doing, it was delayed gratification, which is good in many ways, but everything was working hard today to improve tomorrow. The issue is tomorrow never comes.
Yes.
It's always right
That's
now.
the crazy balance and ultimatum of life. He and I have that conversation all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool approach, though. I'm glad that we're talking about this with a guy who owns a business and a guy who's doing a whole bunch of stuff. It's important to stay, like, grounded and present at the same time.
Yes.
That's where content really is.
100%, yeah.
Right.
And believe me, I am not sitting at home levitating after I go home from that. But, like, it is constantly something I'm working on, but I wouldn't have it any, like, if I don't know how I would do it if I wasn't having, like, because, like, business is all, like, hard, like, it's all for tomorrow in a sense. It's never is anything instantly gratifying. And it needs to be balanced with basically that idea, I think. And
Well, one thing that I always found interesting, and honestly, if you feel the need, correct me if you think this is a wrong approach, but I heard Naval Ravikant say one time that, and it's true if you go back and look at the history of it, but the Buddha was a prince. So he was rich and wealthy and had all of the things that he can ever desire before he was able to make the decision to go and, find a way and sit in the woods and meditate and find his own enlightenment. So it's like, should you just do it now? Or should you pursue the things that you're pursuing and go through all the trials and tribulations in order to fully reflect on the experience? Right?
Ooh,
because there's a story, right? There's a story of this man who's sitting by a boat and he has his hat over his head and, he's just relaxing. And the American comes up to him and he's like, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" He's like, "Nothing. I just caught a fish. I ate today. I'm good." He's like, "Well, why are you resting? You should be getting on your boat and catching more fish. And then you could sell those fish to the villagers. And then when you sell those fish, you can continue to recreate this process, buy a net, double what it is you're able to catch. And now you could magnify the profit that you're capable to make. And then one day you can retire and sit by your boat and just relax." But he's like, "I'm relaxing right now.
Yeah.
Like, why do I have to do all of that work to do what I'm already doing right now?"
Yeah.
So that's a dilemma that I don't have solid foundation with. I'm not sure where I am with that idea.
Oof, dude.
Because I have desires, right? There is a part of me, there's a part of my personality that wants to travel the world and who wants to have the nice cars and who wants to, have the materialistic things. But then there's another part of me that knows inherently, like, that's not what's going to bring you fulfillment.
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile this?
First, I've heard that story before. It's fucking beautiful. God, there's a few things I could say. Let me just gather my thoughts.
Take your time, sir.
So
I threw a lot at you.
It is something I think about all the time, especially when, like, again, like, frequently in a spot of using a lot of grit. And that's honest, again, you know, what's made FitAF get to the point where it is today, which it's doing okay. It's, we work very hard. Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes it's just put your nose down and work. And I have employees that are very ride or die with me, and I'm super grateful for that. Shout out to Yeti and Eddie and John.
Yeti, and John. It's like Ed, and Eddie.
Ed,
Yeah,
and Eddie.
it is. And there's some other, but those guys are like I couldn't do it without them. And we go through periods of suffering.
Yeah.
If I mean, and I'm not, this isn't a, oh, poor me. I'm just being honest.
It's the journey.
Yeah. Okay. So to what you said, I think about that because I think, you know, because we do want to grow and we want to continue to grow. And I have these conflicting, you know, when I started the business, if I'm being honest, I was like, oh, I'd be sick to make a bunch of money.
Drive a nice new car with a
new Ferrari
woman and fly to different countries and have $1 million in my bank account.
Right.
Right.
And I'll be honest, as the business has grown and I've gotten more things, you do realize, oh, it's not that great. And that brings me to what you said first, which was, you know, do we have to go through that experience to realize it's not what we want? You know, people are like, oh, I want to make a bunch of money. Like, is it better for them to just go make a bunch of money and realize it's actually not all that great and it's not going to bring you happiness or contentment or anything you actually want? And I'm afraid to say yes, because it's like, what's the cost? Like, the cost is wasting many years of your life for something that, did you really need to waste 8 years doing that to learn that one lesson? Or like, because in hindsight, like, ask somebody who's 80, like, they would do anything to gain those 8 years back. Everything has a cost to it, especially a time cost, and you do not get back your time. And I think about that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Especially when you get older, like again, 31. But like more recently, I've been saying, whoa, like time fucking flies.
Yeah.
And that is scary.
Yeah.
Because it's something that I've always been told, and I'm always like, yeah, dude, whatever.
You don't believe it when you're young.
Right.
I mean, I'm only 21, and that's like a aspect of life that's really catching up to me, because I'm somebody who holds on to the past a lot. Same thing, I look towards the future, and I always have large amounts of trouble like realizing that those times of life are just gone, and you'll never get that back, ever.
Yes.
No matter what you do, what you wish you could have did different, they're just gone. So
yeah,
it's a scary thought.
It is, but I find like why. So whenever I think, oh God, so much time has gone by, I feel like it, you know, happened so quick. It's usually because I was living in a state of, like I was saying before, nose to the grindstone, working really hard, which is, I think, required of me at times. But if I let that take on a life of its own, then 6 months will go by. I will have not enjoyed you know, a day with my girlfriend or hanging out with friends. I will work 6 months straight, and you know, business might have grown in some aspects. They're good, but then it's like, well, you know, that wasn't what I really wanted.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to your question, it's like, well, what is the balance of like, do I seek being a go-getter and success and things like that, or do I live in a cave, or do I, you know, obviously, like, we want to find the blend, right?
Yeah. That's ideal.
Seems like some people have figured that out though. Like there's
Yes.
some examples like Naval Ravikant.
Yeah, great
Jay
example.
Shetty.
Yeah.
Sadhguru.
Yeah.
You know Sadhguru?
Yeah. I haven't followed him too much, but I know of him.
Yeah. They it seems like they have been able to accomplish that state of being while also being able to influence people and create a legacy and all these other things.
Yeah.
The hard part though is there's really no way of knowing. It's really only what you believe. Like in theory they're living that life, but you don't have an inside scoop of what their
That's
life
true.
actually looks like.
You don't know how much
It is
they're
true.
really suffering.
I like to believe in Naval. He's
Yeah.
just the man.
He's
Yeah.
awesome. He's cool.
I guess you never know. But there is actually something to that because it is very easy to put on a facade.
Yeah. Especially in today's modern internet society.
Right. So if we think about like the ultimate, so like how, like what would make somebody one super content, joyous, and free while allowing them to grow a business, scale it, and as a byproduct probably make a bunch of money and be quote unquote successful. One, I think, huge component of that is separation from outcome. It is literally yes, you're working on your business, but at the same time, you don't give a fuck what happens. And you don't give a fuck sounds like, whatever, but it's literally, there's a bit of, if it grows, cool. If it doesn't, cool. But I thoroughly just enjoy what I'm doing right now. So I'm not really worried about the outcome. That separation is huge and is, I don't want to say hard to get to, but it is, it takes a little bit of work to get there. I am certainly not there. But with that comes complete freedom. It's like, take two people who are in an argument. Who usually wins the argument? The person who cares the least.
That's a good fucking point.
Yeah.
There's something to that.
Damn.
Now, here's the thing. If I tell you, if you're about to step on stage and you're nervous, and I say, don't be nervous.
You're going to be nervous.
Yeah, you're going to be like, okay, thanks, dude.
That fucking helped. Appreciate it.
Right. So and why are people nervous? Because you could argue outcome focused. It's, I want people to think of me a certain way. I don't want to screw this up. I don't want to embarrass myself. I want to, be thought of as a certain way. Like I want the outcome of this to be in my favor. The issue with that is whenever you do that, whenever you have that desire, you're 10 times more afraid of not getting it. So that's the issue with desire. It's, I desire my business to grow to doing 100,000 meals a week. Well, with that, that's not a great example. So you could have a goal, but if I desire, I don't know, to make $1 million tomorrow, and I'm going to do it by, options trading these stocks, for example, I'm going to be 10 times more afraid of not getting it. I'm going to be 10 times more afraid of, screwing up a pitch in baseball, because I'm so again, why do people choke in baseball? They choke because they're worried about
hyperfixated on the outcome.
Right. Why are people hyperfixated? Okay, so what's one step below this? Well, it's because they feel like they need it to be okay.
Yes.
They have a chasm within themselves, a hole within themselves that they feel really needs to be filled. And they feel like that thing is going to fill it. When you put that much pressure upon that thing to fill it, you are playing a dangerous game.
Yeah.
Because one, that thing will never fill it.
Yeah.
And two, all that pressure you're placing upon it is going to backfire in I'm more worried about this not actually happening, and you're going to get way more anxiety. You're going to screw up the pitch. You're going to fumble when you ask that girl out. You're going to choke when you're talking in front of all those people. You're going to make the wrong trading moves when you're out, whatever it is. That's step one. That is again, Eastern philosophy, fundamental, like how do you do it right in business? Really imbibe that. How do you do that? I have no idea.
That's fascinating, man.
It is.
It's so interesting to think, is the human animal flawed? Or is this something that we're designed to figure out? Or is it not designed, but supposed to figure out?
Yeah.
Right? It's because on one hand, the reality is there is no certainty that we can create. Really? And on the other hand, there is this innate desire to be accepted by other people. And so we live right in the middle of trying to control reality, but also wanting to control how we're perceived and how things play out, if that makes sense. So it's we're stuck in this place of trying to bend the unbendable, right?
Yeah, it's fucked up. Whoever created us.
And
Yes.
you
Yes,
shoulda
it
did
is.
You should have did better on this. Well, no, maybe that's the trick. Maybe, I mean, life is a head game, man. Maybe this is the whole point. You know, we're supposed to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people like just live aimlessly.
Yeah, a lot of people don't care about a lot of these things. Sadly, I mean, fuck, I wish more people were worried about that dilemma of life, like everything we were just talking about.
Yeah. It's very interesting. And I shouldn't, I mean, again, whoever created us is fucked up. It's more just, it's interesting.
Yes.
Because these energies within us want us to do different things.
Yeah.
And like nothing ever feels right. And we're always just trying to like figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I'm glad I've landed in this area and I've found much interest in it.
Yeah.
I think at least because I think it's worth playing this game of kind of self-exploration, learning how to live. I don't even know what to say. Learn how to live in an appropriate manner. But this. Sometimes I wonder, like, is the energy placed in it, like, is it actually going anywhere?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, like, how long does it take to figure, like, again, am I ever going to be fully enlightened? I mean, I don't want to say it out loud, but probably not.
Yeah. What does that even look like? Like, I don't even know if I want to be fully enlightened.
Well,
that's scary as well.
The argument, and stop me if we're going on too much of a tangent.
Oh, you're good, man.
The argument is everything we do is out of a desire to be free.
Yes.
You could argue like everything we do is a desire to feel good. Like we move toward pain and away from pleasure. If we're being real honest, though, what is like toward pleasure? Like it's really to be free. Like why do we want to make a bunch of money? Is it to have a big number in our bank account? No. Is it to buy things? No. Both of those things we think will give us the sense of freedom, which is really like, what is freedom? Freedom is that voice in your head shuts up and you're very content. Like that's real. If you actually analyze it, I think that's what we all kind of want. The highest extent of that is maybe enlightenment, if we want to throw that out there, of like, you're just chilling.
Just vibing, just chilling.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, well, is anything that's not that even worth it? I don't know. I think so. I think there's levels of, we could call them levels of consciousness, levels of internal peace that bring about more freedom than others. But it is interesting because, again, like how much time do we want to waste figuring out how to get there? How many things do we want to chase, thinking we're going to get there, figuring out, oh, behind that door is nothing, behind that door is nothing. Like, how often are we going to do that until we just say, I don't know.
Well, what sucks, I mean, is the only way to find out is by trying. I mean,
maybe.
I'll tell you this. I had no clue we were getting into this.
No, that's what I was just going to say. I'm very happy it took this kind of turn. Again, I wasn't expecting it either. But, I mean, this is shit that I think about within my head all the time. He's worried about jiu-jitsu over there.
Oh, Brian?
Fuck ass.
Brian's trying to get his rolls into his slap bumps. Why don't you come on down with us, buddy? Why don't you come train with us?
I got a thing. And I don't know my gi. I don't know my rash guard.
That's all good. That's all
good. Are you guys training after this?
Yeah, we're going to go to Bad Company after this.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we're going to get you at some point.
Yeah.
We'll get you in there.
I'm going to be back.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, I mean, this conversation was awesome, man. I'm happy Me too. Like I said, I'm happy the conversation went down that route. I mean, it's things that I think about all the time. I know it's things he think about all the time. If you are a viewer and you watch us, I hope that these are some of the things that go through your head in your day-to-day life or revelations you're trying to get to. But, I mean, hey, man, this was an awesome conversation. I'm happy we did this.
Yeah, I had a good time.
It was nice meeting you. Fit AF is awesome. Do you want to tell the people where they could shop, where they could find you, where they could
hear about your services, and how to get involved in getting some meal preps or some nutritional coaching?
Yes. Like website fitafnutrition.com, Facebook /fitafnutrition. If you have questions or anything, you could shoot me an email, Jordan@fitafnutrition.com. But to check out, nutrition coaching, our meals and stuff like that, fitafnutrition.com is where you go for that.
Nice. Awesome, man. I'm very excited. We'll make sure to get everything linked in the description for you. So hopefully we can get you some new clients. Come on, guys.
GG Pod. Appreciate you guys. Jordan, you're a sage. I appreciate you, sir.
Thanks.
Let's go, people. We hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, subscribe, share with a friend. We love you guys. Jordan, this was awesome. Again, thank you, man. I appreciate you coming.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Subscribe. Peace.
That was cool.